Welcome back to Webcertain TV. I'm Gemma Houghton, and today I'm joined by Sebastian Grebasch, who is the Marketing Director at Visual Meta and also the founder of agency Placemind. Today we're going to talk about innovations in paid search. So hi Sebastian, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the paid search space is very fluid. There's a lot happening at the moment, lots going on. What do you think are the most exciting innovations right now for paid search marketers?
Well, what I'm really looking forward to is that finally people understand the value of automation. So people have been talking about this for years now, but nothing really happened apart from a few companies that begin to offer tools and software as a service basically for automation. But now I kind of have the feeling that even companies try to in-house the topic, and there are a lot of different approaches going on right now. Most of them are super exciting, and I'm really looking forward to that. Other than that, it's basically people tend to move away from Google, and with that, I don't necessarily mean using Bing or Yahoo instead. That has happened ever since, basically. But now we're talking about Amazon, where you can actually buy ads. Even Facebook can be considered to actually work in a similar way. So that's quite interesting.
Apple is starting search ads, I guess.
Sorry, come again?
Apple are also starting search ads.
True. Even though didn't check them out for that basically, but for other topics. And this is actually super exciting. What I'm really interested to see is basically what happens with search that's not initiated by people typing something in. So you've got your vocal assistants right now. At some point, I think those will be bookable with ads. But actually, I don't have enough fantasy to imagine how this might look like. I'm just pretty certain that this is going to happen. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that actually is really in the vague right now, but super exciting to see.
So what does that mean for people working in the paid search space in terms of how they need to approach, their planning for their campaigns, how they need to think about where they want to spend their money? Is it still now the case that, really it is still in the search engines, it's still a lot in Google, or is now the time to really start trying and testing other platforms?
Well, for the platform bit, it highly depends on basically what business you're running. So there always is a search engine. Most of the time there's a search engine completely tailored to your audience. So Google serves pretty much all, but you always have basically, if you're running a service, you've got Quip. If you're running, or if you're actually selling stuff, you've got Amazon. So, which is where traffic is even more pre-qualified, and even though search already is pre-qualified because you know what people are looking for, but now they're looking at a place
where they can buy.
Where you actually know, okay, apparently that guy is further down the funnel because he already chose a destination that is actually serving his needs, and now I just have to be there.
You tend not to go to Amazon just to do research.
Exactly.
As such, you go when you're ready to buy something.
Correct. That's right.
So does that mean that we're going to see likely, a massive reduction in the spend that the businesses do have on Google as they move to other places? Is that, is Google search as we know it something that may well not exist anymore?
Frankly, I don't think so. It's more like if people or companies are about to increase their spend, it will not go all into Google. So I would rather see, not a decline, not even spend on Google remaining steady, but more or less that maybe you consider other options and said just give everything to Google or even Facebook at the moment. So basically, the beauty of it basically is that not as usually with like new forms of advertising or new places where you could put ads on, if they're programmatic and not a lot of advertisers are there, it's fairly cheap to do that. So it's still like a big playground, so to say. Frankly, it's not going to be for long because the periods you have before others adapt to it, that is becoming shorter and shorter. But it's actually quite exciting to see that.
So you mentioned programmatic there, and like you say, it's an area that's still, a lot of businesses are testing the water or haven't even got that close to it yet. But how do you see that changing? What are the benefits of that approach compared to how we've tended to see paid search in the past?
Well, frankly, people understand the benefit of an automated bidding. So people tend to, or over the past years, people got to understand that the biggest lever that you have in order to manage like big search budgets is not your ad copies, is probably not even the amount of keyword you buy, There are also basically underlying factors that you need to have, but the actual steering comes with bidding and with budgeting. And frankly, a machine can do this way better than a human could ever have. It's quite interesting to see that Google put a lot of effort into their own bidding approach, which is now called smart bidding, I think. Which is quite interesting because on one hand, I think it's the most sophisticated bidding tool there is, because Google can use much more signals than any other third-party tool can use. They have the device, they have basically the placement if it's outside of Google. They have the impression data and everything like that in real time. So they actually offer an actual real-time bidding. No one else can do that. On the other hand, it's still letting the person you give the money to decide where to spend the money. Which feels odd, so to say. So you really have to basically trust in the model. Successes are good. You've got other companies that offer like a more frequent bidding cycle, so it's getting more and more programmatic. Well, in the past it was basically we change your bid once a day. Now it's basically up to 8 or 12 times per hour, which leads to other problems, so to say. And Google is the only one that offers real-time bidding right now, which is super exciting. And this is what I actually pay a lot of attention at the moment, because I want to better understand what they're doing. It's a complete black box. They won't tell you what they're doing, which is one of the biggest negative points of the entire system. But it works pretty well. So at least for basically businesses with short lead times. For travel, not so sure if you need to have real-time bidding. But for e-commerce or for lead generation, it's definitely a benefit.
And how does it work to actually set up these real-time campaigns, within Google? How much effort does it require to get them running?
Fairly easy, to be honest. You don't just have to basically give them your conversion data. So that's the one big decision you have to make. If you're fine with doing that, then you can actually switch it on more or less immediately. With other tracking bits, it's usually pixel integration. You have to relearn a new tool basically, and then you have to actually wait a while for the tool to gather data. Google usually has that. They can simulate data models from others. I'm not fully convinced that this works perfectly well. You still have this up and down in the very beginning. But the setup, especially if you're using Google's Tag Manager, I'm sounding like a Google fanboy now, right? Anyhow, especially if you're using the Google Tag Manager, it's fairly easy. So actually, you don't necessarily even need development support to do that.
So it's a very easy way to test and just try, a bit of trial and error. You don't have to invest a lot into it to see if it works.
The biggest barrier you really have is make up your mind on, do I want to give, what data do I want to give to Google or not? And I can tell from speaking to people that there still is a lot of people still hesitate to do that. Maybe for good reasons, I don't know. But if you're basically beyond that point and you make that decision, it's actually pretty easy.
And then just to go back to your initial point about automation, and we've already talked then about programmatic, which is of course another step towards that. What are the pitfalls with the search industry and paid in general becoming more automated? What are the risks to perhaps both users and businesses?
You basically have to relearn the channel. So you have to live with the idea, not that you necessarily lose control because you let a tool decide what keywords to bid on. But you basically have to create completely new workflows. To be completely honest, less annoying ones, because it can be super bugging to actually work on Excel on a 6-digit number of keywords and try to process them. And you usually spend days doing that. So a lot of the paid search work, like the actual craftsmanship, can be pretty dull. My hope would be that this is going to be limited then, and people can get more creative because tools give them the time to do so, because at the moment it's usually you have an idea and then you spend days in order to actually bring them to life, and this is hopefully changing with that.
So it's really a little bit that you have to invest a bit more time initially, but in the long run it should give you greater freedom and more time to spend on the creative side and on actually developing good campaigns.
Exactly. So you need to have more planning up front, more controlling in the end, because it's a tool and you need to understand what it's doing. But you spend way less time basically doing the stuff that can easily be automated.
Cool. Well, we look forward to seeing how all of this develops.
I'm actually hoping and guessing that it's never going to be fully automated. So you still need people to actually do the creative bit, because we're talking about language, we're not necessarily talking about images. Basically, and
you're still talking to people ultimately.
Exactly, and you can even tell today, like even with English ads, if I were to write an English ad, I'm not a native speaker. I guess there are a lot of people out there that could tell that this was not well created by a native. And now imagine a machine would do that. So it's I would guess it's probably even more noticeable than what's happening right now anyway.
Great. Well, we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens.
So do I.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thanks.
Thanks.